Three. This is the first segment. 3, 2.
Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on Fox News Radio 9:10 a.m. This is the show where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other business of the day. For those of you listening for the first time, here is our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks. Did you forget to bring the drinks this time?
Darn.
You forgot. Okay. Talking business with you, the audience, the audience is listening in. And I'm Edward Brown, your host, and I'm honored to have as my co-host Mark Hunt of Pacific Private Money, California's premier private lender. Listen up, people. Get a pencil and paper because our new phone number is 888-912-1190. That's an easy one to remember. Write that down, 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. The vacations are sponsored by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, located 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. And today's trivia theme is My Era. Music from the 1970s. Love that era.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the vacations are free. Their only request is a $75 cleaning fee to cover housekeeping expenses. Their website is lighthouseforfun.com. You can reach them at 916-777-5511. Our website is bestofinvesting.com. Use let's try this again. You can email questions or comments to Edward at bestofinvesting.com. And check us out on Facebook. One quick reminder, World Wraps in Corte Madera and Santa Clara is still giving our listeners a free smoothie with purchase of a wrap or bowl. Mention the Best of Investing and you'll get a free smoothie. And today's guest, who we're going to have on segments 2 and 3, Stephen and Mike, Stephen Shoen and Mike Samuels, and we're going to talk about divorce and how it affects real estate. They got excellent information for us, but right now we're going to cut right over to Mark Hunt, my handsome co-host.
Oh, gee, thank you. What an interesting week we've had this week. We've had another crazy stock market, down several hundred points again for the week. But the real news is, get this, 30-year fixed rates, 3.75.
I'll take 2 of them.
I'll wager that there's very few people alive today that have ever owned a home with a rate that low.
Oh, how far back do you have to go?
I don't know.
I don't even know if they ever had them that low.
Well, maybe in the 40s, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. But, of course, now to qualify for that, it's not like it was in the roaring early 2000s, where all you needed to do was fog a mirror and show your social security number, and you too could get a loan for, up to 100% financing. No, this is full document. Yeah, this is a full doc situation.
What kind of credit score do you need?
I think this one, I was just looking at the rate sheet today, I think that best rate is, it's over 700, I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm not a conventional mortgage loan originator, I'm a private money real estate loan originator. So, interesting thing, in our business, Pacific Private Money, we do real estate loans to real estate investors. And the frustrating part for in our business is that we get calls for real estate loans from people who don't qualify for one of these killer loans, and they just expect that the cost of our money in a private money loan, sometimes known as a hard money loan, also should be quite a bit lower than maybe it was historically. And then the fact of the matter is that there's pretty huge disparity right now between bank rates and private money rates. But then again,
what are the private money rates?
Private money rates, they are coming down. I mean, it used to be 10 to 12, and now it's 9 to 10, maybe 8 to 10. There's pressure on the private money and hard money rates to downward too.
Why don't you give us a quick explanation as to why they're as high as they are?
Well, a private money loan is exactly what it sounds like. It's funded by a private individual. So an individual using their savings or their IRA funds has an awful lot of investment options. They have traditional investment options, which include stocks, bonds, mutual funds, gold, and those right now, we know what the stock market did this week, so it's kind of scary to be in there.
Gold also kind of took a little bit of a hit.
Yes, it did. And then if you wanted to invest in maybe CDs or bonds, those rates are just, it's as close to zero as you're going to find. So people are looking for alternative investments. And they are looking at things like trust deed secured notes, which is what it's called when they invest in a loan, in a real estate loan. So you still have to look at the risk profile, and there are there's investment options out there. There's REITs, there's certain preferred stocks that Ken likes to talk about from time to time that are paying in the 6s, 7s, and 8s, and those tend to be readily liquid, and so in terms of someone funding a private money loan, the return has to be enough to entice them to take what they consider, a risk. They're going to make a loan on real estate. It's not really liquid, and they're taking a chance that the guy's going to make his payments and then pay it off in time.
Yeah, but there's also some advantages to specifically private loans like you're talking about, because the investor knows exactly which one he's going into versus in a REIT, it's very diversified, but it's a pool. He can't figure out, do I want to invest in this one, but I don't like this one.
Well, and I love trustee investments. I think everybody who's who's saving money should have some of their investment in a trustee secured note. You can get 8 to 10% on your money fixed, and many of our borrowers are A-paper and what we used to call Alt-A type borrowers, meaning they've got maybe a little ding on their credit, but they, otherwise they've got excellent capabilities. So, but we're really just talking about why is a private money loan still 8 to 10% cost for a borrower when you can go to the bank and get a loan at 3.75.
Well, if you can get loan at 3.75.
And the other answer is most of our borrowers are real estate investors. We're not making consumer home loans to go out and buy a home. We don't make 30-year loans. So there's so the Fed is providing money for those or providing an environment where there's money available at 3.75 to buy your home if you qualify. But on the private money side, which is an industry right now that is thriving, there's more private money loans being funded on a monthly basis right now than probably ever before in history, I would guess.
Well, the banks are just still not
They're
lending.
very, very stingy when it comes to real estate investors. And so if you're a real estate investor and you want to leverage the money you have into more California real estate, specifically Bay Area real estate, you should be calling a company like Pacific Private Money in Nevada at 415-883-2150 to find out what kind of loan programs you have, short-term, mid-term, long-term, to help you.
Well, that actually gets into, I don't know if you want to get into the email yet, or
no,
we'll save that. It has to do with providing short-term loans and the time period. But the other thing, though, and I like about the trustee investing is that, I kind of imagine it like a CD because it's got a specific term. It's not FDIC insured, but it's backed by the specific real estate because you are the bank. And I guess where the risk really comes in is what kind of loan to value are you looking at? If you're going 90% loan to value, then it's going to be risky. If you're looking at 30% loan to value, it's not so risky.
Right, there's the theory we call protective equity. And when we make a loan that's no more than 65% of the market value, by the math, that means there's 35% equity in the property. We call that protective equity.
And so the market would have to drop at least another 30% from today's value. In order for there to be,
right. There seems to be some consensus that we may be looking at, another 5%, maybe in some markets another 10%. Who really knows? None of our crystal balls are really that clear when it comes to predicting future real estate prices. But I tend to think that we're in. If we're not at the bottom, we're awfully near it, and the question becomes how long do we tread along the bottom before things start to go back the other direction.
And also the location, because you're not living in Timbuktu, you're living in California Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, that's the other thing too, is we're making loans in cities in the Bay Area that our investors are familiar with. So, for example, we loan in San Francisco, Marin, the East Bay. We're all over the place, the peninsula. And so in those communities, people are generally they're familiar with the community and they're familiar with the prices and they feel comfortable with them.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And we're going to have to cut to our first commercial break. When we come back, listeners, stay with us because we're going to have Stephen Shoen and Mike Samuels who are going to talk about divorce and how it affects real estate, and they've got some fantastic information for us. And here we go to the first commercial break. And here's your first trivia question. What group sang YMCA in the 1970s and dressed in various outfits such as a construction worker and an Indian? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website again is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What group sang YMCA in the 1970s and dressed in various outfits such as a construction worker and an Indian? One more time, 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, address, and phone number, and your email address, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question, which, by the way, I'm Edward Brown, your host, and my co-host is the famous Martin from Pacific Private Money. And here was the first trivia question. What group sang YMCA in the 1970s and dressed in various outfits such as a construction worker and an Indian? Mark, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know. I worked with construction workers growing up, and usually they wore shirts, but not these guys. The village people.
The village people, that is correct. The first three callers with the correct answer won a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. And we are in the studio here with Stephen Shoen, who is a real estate broker with Alon Pinnell, and Mike Samuels, who is a family law attorney, and they're going to discuss how divorce affects real estate, and we're also going to talk about estates with real estate. So guys, take it away.
Well, I'd like to start out by saying that it's really how the market affects the divorce, not the other way around, really.
That's a good. That's good.
Yeah, and the new economy here has radically changed the way divorce is practiced, and it's really all family law attorneys now are struggling to get caught up, and we're all going to seminars and classes and reading journals and so on and so forth about what to do about this. And I belong to a group called the Association of Certified Family Law Specialists, and every year we put on a spring seminar, a very high-powered, cutting-edge seminar, and I have the program for the April 2009 program, which was called Complex Property Characterizations and Disposition Issues, Strategies for the Uncertain Economy.
Well, that sounds exciting.
That's a mouthful.
And well, that was the overall theme of the weekend. Like, for example, one of the programs was Practical Solutions to Real Estate Problems, Characterization and Division in a Down Real Estate Market. Another one was Upside Down and Inside Out, Coping with Foreclosures and Short Sales. Now, particularly here in Marin, but certainly statewide, and probably nationally too, we didn't have that problem before. When home prices were going up, 5%, 10% a year here in Marin,
Nobody got divorced, didn't have financial problems.
The net worth is going up.
well, in most cases, in the case of a divorce, there was equity in the house. And that solved a lot of problems.
Yes.
How do you pay off the debt, the credit card debt? How does one person buy out the other party if they're going to keep the house? There was equity, so you could refinance with Mark, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So how do you equalize? There's usually an equalizing payment. You add up everything the wife's going to get, you add up everything the husband's going to get, and it doesn't come out equal. How do you equalize it? Well, there are many ways to do that, but one of the ways was always from the equity of the house, which we don't have anymore. So
you've got kind of this double whammy of you've got declining, you've got a horrible economy, you've got people out of work, and money problems lead to greater divorces.
Exactly.
And then you get a divorce, and now you've got trying to divide the assets. It's like, oops, what assets?
well,
Yeah. Who gets the liabilities, really?
actually, some people were staying married because of the cost of divorce. So, but you always have to take a real simple example. If all you had were two cars, and one was a paid-off brand new Mercedes, and the other one was a Yugo, the person getting the Mercedes is going to owe the other party some money.
Wait a minute, hold on. I don't know about that. Okay, I'll agree. Right.
So there are other ways to do it. You take the house and I'll take the Schwab account, or and trade off like that. But still, many cases there was money, equity in the house. It's not there anymore, and what do you do about it? Well, it's still for the legal profession fairly new. Okay?
Yeah, because you usually haven't had that before. And then I would think that some of these divorces are starting to get pretty contentious.
Well, we're going to all these classes and seminars and so forth, but when it actually happens,
Talk
you
to a
know,
psychologist.
what do we do, and what a judge is gonna do? And it takes, let's say, a year or two for some cases to get to trial, and then what we depend upon, if there's no legislation, is appellate decisions, and that's another year or two before the appellate decision comes
Which are
down.
very expensive.
Yes, they are. So there's not a lot of law. For example, it's an underwater house. Someone wants to keep it. It's $100,000 underwater. The person who wants to keep it says, hey, other spouse, pay me $50,000 because that's a debt, just like any other debt.
You know, that's kind of interesting because depending upon what the interest payment is, you know, most houses are non-recourse financing, so in theory, they might be able to walk away at some point, and so there may not actually ever be that liability.
Well, that's true. And that's what our judge is doing about that. And we don't know exactly.
As you said, no case law, because this is a new economy.
Right, and different judges and different counties could come up with different answers. Probably most judges are going to say, no, I'm not going to assign that debt to the other party. You want the house, you can keep it as is. But nevertheless, it is a problem and it's a learning experience for all of us.
So let me ask you, do they ever think prospectively from the standpoint of, well, maybe it's underwater now, but come on, real estate's not going to go down that much further, and let's look to the future?
Well, yeah, that's why some people want to keep the house regardless, if they can make the mortgage payments. Now, we're leaving the whole thing out about all of the problems with the economy other than the housing market and people being out of jobs and what effect that has on divorces, and I can't pay my spousal support and child support anymore. You know, that's a whole other area and a whole other issue.
Well, can I break in here? This is Stephen, and yeah, right in the old days, she was always a great housekeeper, and Mike, every time she got divorced, she kept the house. It's a little bit different now, because you're right, refinancing is out the door, you're not doing it anymore, so and joking aside, you know, it is a tough decision. Usually there's 3 options that we can consider, which I'll talk about in just a second.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what we're talking about here is what to do. We'll talk about a minute in potential outcomes, but we're all puzzled by it. This same group, the Association of Certified Family Law Specialists, puts out a quarterly newsletter, and this is clear from the fall of 2010, so it's a year ago. There's a real estate attorney and broker in Sonoma who wrote an article. His name is William Matz, and he lists 10 different things, 10 different solutions. You know, sell the house, refinance it, senior options like reverse mortgages, loan modifications. This is all Steve's area, but I'm just listing the what this person. Short finances, bankruptcy, deed in lieu of foreclosure, foreclosure itself,
So whole gamut,
litigation, short sales, which Steve and I have talked about a little bit.
Well,
Right. So you know, so what do you do, and how do you work it out with hopefully without spending more money which you don't have in the first place, going to court and fighting about all this. Of course, one way, I also mediate family law cases, and if you can sit down around the table.
Because maybe you get, like you said, more people, maybe you're not getting divorced because of all the.
Right.
Well, true, and this is Stephen again, it does get complicated because there's so many distressed homes right now. For example, in San Rafael, where we're at right now, there's 168 distressed properties. There's over
And give the definition of a distressed
a
property.
distressed property is someone who is not making payments, who's underwater. It's either a short sale or it's a foreclosure. They're pre-foreclosure, they're in trouble. And they're trying to figure a solution out. The solution of refinance, as we just said, is out the door. And it gets complicated when it is a divorce, because Mike and I just did a case where it was a short sale, and we'll chat about that.
Yeah, when we come to, after we go to the commercial break, we come back, I want to hear about a specific story that we can share with the listeners on that.
So the point is, we're all sort of floundering just like the clients as to come up with a solution to these problems. Now, one of them, whether you're litigating or mediating, is to call someone like Steve and get his suggestions. Maybe call someone like Mark and get his suggestions of is there money? Where can money come from? What can we do? And come up with a solution. A lot of these things, I think, are multidisciplinary problems that, besides the psychologists that we call in to deal with those problems.
Did you ever actually bring in a psychologist?
Oh, absolutely. It's very common, particularly when children are involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called realtors.
Yeah, yeah.
My mom always wanted me to be a psychologist, and she got me, she wished for it.
Well, you're really good. You know, I've seen on your website and the emails that you give Stephen, and you do seem like a psychologist.
Well, you gotta care a lot.
A little. Yeah, you were about to say care a little. I know. No, you care a lot.
You know, you have to take the emotion out of it. That's where I come in. But also, you have to be a neutral third party and
Yeah.
what's the best interest of your client. So.
Right, you're trying to be a solutions provider too. That's the thing.
Right, and these people not only have trouble with their finances in their house, but they're getting divorced, and that's a whole other psychological suitcase, more baggage that interferes or enters into the whole situation here. So it's not just that their house is underwater and what effect does that have, but everything else in the bad economy.
How they gonna split it? And Mike will tell you, anybody who claims that marriage is a 50-50 proposition doesn't know a thing about women or fractions.
Okay, and guys, we're going to go to a commercial break. We are in the studio with Stephen Shoen, a real estate broker with Lon Pinnell, and Mike Samuels, who is a family law attorney, and they're showing us about divorce and real estate. And when we come back, we're also going to talk about a specific short sale story, and then give some advice to our listeners who may be, having some marital problems with real estate in here. All right, here we're going to come to our second commercial break, and here is the second trivia question. In 1977, she sang "You Light Up My Life" and was the daughter of a famous straight-laced singer and actor. Who was she? The first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website, check them out, is lighthouse4fun.com. Again, our brand new number to call in is 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. In 1977, she sang "You Light Up My Life" and was the daughter of a famous straight-laced singer and actor. Who was she? Of course, if I sang it, it would be a little easier for people to figure out. 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, address, phone number, and email address, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question. In 1977, she sang "You Light Up My Life." That's not too bad, okay? And was the daughter of a famous straight-laced singer and actor. Who was she? And I think Mike has the answer.
I think it was Debbie Boone.
It was Debbie Boone's daughter of Pat Boone. And we are in the studio with Stephen Shoen, who is a real estate broker from Lon Pinnell, and Mike Samuels, who is a family law specialist. He worked very hard to get that degree, and so we're going to give him credit for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, a couple of things I wanted to get into. Stephen, before we cut to break, you were going to get into a story about short sales. And before this segment is over, we got to give some really good advice to our listeners. So go ahead, give us a great short
Well,
sale
this
story.
it's a good segue because Mike called me, about 6 months ago because he did have a couple who was divorced, did have a home in San Rafael, and it happened to be a short sale as well, so it became very complicated.
It's like the perfect storm.
Before I went to Steve, though, I have to say I ran through that whole list of potential solutions, and we were considering many of those before it appeared that the short sale was going to be the only way to go, or
The best way to go.
Well,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
there are three options to consider. One, of course, is to sell the house, and then split the proceeds according to the fractions that the wife. The other one-
60-40, split it evenly. Yeah.
The other one is to buy out your spouse's share of the house. Now, that happened to...
And that's tough if you don't have the extra
Well,
money.
you know, it happened to a client of mine in 2005 when the house was worth $980,000, and the husband insisted on valuating it at that 2005. They got divorced like 2 or 3 years later. The property went down $250,000. The husband was still on the stick for that loss. So there's different ways to go ahead and.
Wait, the husband insisted on the two people. You think it was
Well,
gonna
it's
go up in-
separation of, yeah.
He thought it was going to
Who
go
knows?
more up in value. Oops.
So who knew? So the other options, of course, are refinancing, which we talked about, and keeping the joint ownership of the house for now, especially if there's children. You might want to keep it till they get out of high school and that sort of thing. But in this particular case, no children still in the
There
house.
was a child in the beginning. He was in high school, and before the divorce ended, he was off and in college already. And the wife stayed in the house, and she stayed in for a number of years after the parties had separated. And she was supposed to be responsible for paying the loans, the first and the second, and property taxes and insurance. That's pretty standard when you have community property and you have exclusive use of it, you pay for it.
Someone's got to pay for it.
It's not quite that simple, but
Yeah.
in its most simple form. And eventually, she stopped paying on the second, and there was about $50,000 shortfall there. Unfortunately, as Steve will explain and worked his magic somehow, it was a little bit easier because both of the loans were from the same lender.
That definitely helps.
And I think, well, I didn't know how much it would help, but when Steve got a hold of everything, that really helped a lot.
Thanks, yeah. Well, so they decided, it's a shortfall, let's sell the house. And how do you pick a realtor? For those out there that are thinking of, I have a family friend that's a realtor, should I hire them? Well, yeah, if he's unbiased or she's unbiased, absolutely. But sometimes a lot of folks don't want to do that. They don't want friends to know what their finances are. That
Sure.
they have $750,000 in the bank. I didn't know that. So it's good to pick a neutral realtor. That's number one. And then there's some other things that go on in preparing the house for sale. In this case, it was a little difficult because, the woman wasn't the best housekeeper. And you still have to prepare the house as if it's showtime. It's got to look its very best.
So
Even
you
if it's a short sale.
advise her to move out into an apartment?
Well, it turns out, you have to look at what is the client's best interest, and we convinced her that it is in her best interest to get this behind her, get this burden off her shoulders, so she was cooperative. There was a further complication where there was a tenant. She had put in an in-law unit illegally, which really came back to, bite us a little bit at the end, but it's a long story. Call me off air, I'll tell you about it. So there was a tenant that we had to also be very, helpful.
Cognizant of,
And to
you
show-
had to kind
show
of
our
participate
property.
in this.
So, long story short, there were two lenders. We got the price, we got a buyer right away, we got lucky. There's so much paperwork in the short sale, it takes about a redwood tree down there to make it all happen. And then there's, at the closing, the best thing we can do is to make it as smooth as possible. So there were some complications. Fortunately, the other realtor was very good and had worked short sales, and we got it all together.
But you had to price it right to begin with. I mean, that's a major thing in order to get that buyer.
It doesn't matter, you're absolutely right. It doesn't really matter if it's a short sale or not. Pricing a home is the most important thing in this market, because if it lingers on the market 30 to 60 days, you're going to find that the percentage of over the asking price is going to go way down. So, yeah, we did price it right. The buyer got a steal of a deal on it. And at the very end, we even got the lender to agree to some closing costs to fix up the toilets and stuff like that.
So they took, how much of a hit did the bank take on the loan?
The bank, I can't remember, is probably 100.
It was over 100,000 because there was.
And add a little salt into the wound, said,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, you gotta pay some closing costs on this too.
Well, it had to be at least because they owed $50,000 on the second that had never been paid.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were $50,000 short there, and the burden might have fallen all on one party to pay that off had it not been worked out that way. So it was even more important that Steve work his magic and make this actually happen, because otherwise, one of the parties was in a better financial position than the other.
Sure.
And probably would, not legally, but practically would have more or less gotten stuck with that whole thing. And it didn't help that the out-spouse was transferred to Singapore in the middle of all of this either,
That
so.
adds an extra
you know.
part to the equation. Well, is there any specific advice that you guys can give us for the listeners? if you're going through, we're a downturn real estate, obviously, which
And a downturn in marriage.
And a downturn in marriage, yeah.
Well, I think you have to have an attorney who is familiar with what's happening in this down market, and you have to, hopefully, if you go to the attorney first, which is normally what would happen in a case like this, because we had other agents lined up to do this. The actual agent that had represented them when they purchased the house many years ago was still around, and we sort of, okay, well, she will do, she's okay, they both knew her and everything, but then that didn't work out. So you need someone like Steve who can come in and help you solve this particular part of your divorce.
Well, before we forget, because we want to have the listeners contact you if they have questions on, with any kind of divorce type or marital problems with real estate. Stephen, you're the real estate broker with Ron Pinnell. How do people get hold of you?
Well, the best way is email Stephen, S-T-E-V-E-N, at Shoen, that's my last name, S-H-O-E-N, realestate.com.
Shoen with an N.
Let it be shown.
Let it be shown.
And my phone number, 415-596-4455, 596-4455, and of course, like Mike, everything that we discuss is confidential.
Yeah. And also, this podcast will be up on our website, www.bestofinvesting.com. So in a week or so or less, you can go on our website if you forget the audience, if you forget the phone numbers. And then Mike, you are the family law specialist. How do people get a hold of you?
Right, well, I have an office in San Rafael, and my phone number is 415-258-9064, and also a good way to get a hold of me is email at Samuel's Law, it's all one word, SAMUELSLAW, at Comcast.net. And I check my email very often, so that's a good way to get a hold of me.
Good. I get a lot of emails.
And Stephen, I got a question for you, because I know that a huge percentage of people's homes are underwater these days, a home with a mortgage nationwide. Nearly 30% that we're staring at are underwater or near underwater. So short sales are a reality for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be looking at a short sale if they have to sell, and so it's true. I've found that people who need to short sell at home need to work with someone like yourself who's actually done it before. It's really an art rather than a science, isn't it?
Well, it is, and Mark, 36% of all the homes sold nationwide last year were distressed properties, and I imagine it's going to be the same today.
Absolutely.
So the tips for the listeners: work with a realtor who is a certified distressed property expert, and a neutral third party like a good realtor. And I don't split the listing just because I know how to get it sold. So those are a few quick tips. And any other questions?
All right, and we are going to cut to our third and final trivia question, guys. Thanks again for being in the studio. Stick with us. We're going to get into email time with Mark when we come back. We got a great question here from a potential borrower, and here is the third and final trivia question. What #1 song from the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was sung by B.J. Thomas? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website again is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What #1 song from the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was sung by B.J. Thomas? 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, address, phone number, and email address, and we will be right back. Well, welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host, Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money. When we cut to the third and final trivia question, this was the question here at the break. What #1 song was from the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and was sung by B.J. Thomas? Mark, sing it for us.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
Do.
Something like that.
Excellent. That is correct. The first 3 callers with the correct answer won a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. We're going to get right into email time here. Mark, here is an email we received from a listener. I understand your company provides short-term loans. Why don't you give borrowers 5 or 10-year loans? That's a good question.
And we get that question a lot, and really, at Pacific Private Money, we specialize in making loans to real estate investors, and not just Pacific, but there's a handful of really good private lenders throughout the Bay Area and hundreds in California, but it's generally considered, by its nature, it's a short-term loan. We're talking about private individuals who are putting up their savings into one of these loans, and maybe now more than in prior years, because I think there are companies out there that over time have made privately funded loans for longer periods than say 2 or 3 years, which is usually the maximum that we go out.
Yeah, but I think a borrower generally doesn't want to hold a 10%
Well,
loan in
that's
this
the
market.
case. That's just it. But the other reason, one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, is because there's so much uncertainty in the market right now that it's really difficult to get people to commit their money long term. It's one thing if you're putting it into a bond, 10-year, 20-year bond or a CD or something, and that money's insured and you know you're going to get it back. People's horizons right now are their vision's pretty short, and so to lock that money up for 5 or 7 years, there's what if inflation comes back, and what if prime rates are like they were in the early '80s? They're 18%, and you're stuck, quote unquote, in an 8% paying private loan when private money rates maybe in that market are now 20%.
Well, so here's the thing: is if you get a high rate and you say, great, I want to lock this in as an investor, and for 10 years. But the borrower goes ahead and refinances when rates drop. Well, then they get refinanced out anyway.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the demand right now for loans, the type of loan applications we're getting are mostly short-term anyway. More than half of the loans we fund today are for short-term uses. They're to buy, fix, and flip real estate.
Yeah, but you do have prepayment penalties or minimum guarantees
for
on
the
your
investor.
loans.
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
Because otherwise, what happens is the borrower might be able to refinance in 30 days, and that doesn't help your client.
But they're generally considered short-term loans to buy, fix, and flip real estate. Although we are making loans to people who are collecting property, because quite frankly, you can borrow at 10%, you can borrow at 11 or 12% in certain markets where the value of the real estate has gone down so much that you can buy income property, and the rents are so strong that even with say a 65% hard money loan paying 10 to 12%, you still have positive cash flow. So
Yeah.
in those cases, we are making 2 or 3 year loans, but generally not longer than that, again, for the reasons we discussed. It's just the pool of people in our stable of investors who are willing to go out 5 to 7 years. I may be able to do 1 or 2 here and there, but they're just usually, they're just harder to fund because not that many people are really interested in going out that long. So the sweet spot right now is like between 12 and 36 months. So that's the easiest loan to get as a borrower.
And I've known you for quite some time now, and I can attest to your honesty. So I think it's a good idea for you to give out your phone number and website again, not only for potential borrowers, but also potential investors.
Absolutely. We have 2 types of clients, our borrower clients and our investor clients. And we're based in Nevada, which is in Marin County, and you can find us 2 ways. One, of course, the web. We got PacificPrivateMoney.com for borrowers, and we have a new investors website, which is PacificPrivateInvestments.com. We decided to separate it into 2 because we've got a different message for both sides of the coin.
Phone number?
Our phone number, 415-883-2150, and that's 415-883-2150, Monday through Friday.
Okay, we still have Stephen and Mike in the studio here, and Stephen, you were going to tell us about a story about an estate.
Well, right. I for many years, I worked closely with estates and probates attorneys to handle those kinds of problems, and they are some really wild problems. One estate's attorney had told me about 2 sisters that fought over the blue glassware.
What was it worth?
It was worth maybe $40. They spent
Oh my
over
gosh.
6 months, $40,000.
Was it just that much sentimental value? Or were they
Who
trying to
knows?
punish
You know,
each other?
I'm always amazed when a parent dies and those kids.
You know what? In that case, the attorney
And
should have
every-
given them $40 and bought new
She
glassware.
did. She did. That's basically what she did. Convince the one sister to trade the Oriental rug, and she offered to pay them.
After the $40,000 was
Well, no,
spent.
she did it before, but they wouldn't do it.
Oh, okay.
It's not that uncommon in divorces for that to happen
Yeah.
too, where people are fighting over the 2 statues they brought back from Africa that are a set. And
Oh,
they don't want
yeah.
to break up the set, they could each take one, but then they spend more money on that than on much more
But I'll
important
bet in a
things.
divorce, I can imagine that be it the husband or wife, whatever, is trying to, if I know you want it, then I'm gonna make sure that that's something I get.
Well, estates, it's Stephen again, but estates are a little bit different. People ask me, how do estate sales differ from regular real estate sales? Well, not really that much, but you have to pay attention to the liens, quite frankly. The attorney and I would work together to get the preliminary title report, find out if there's any mechanics liens. There was one case off the records where the parents had a claim, one of the children died, had a claim for paying X amount of dollars for the kids, and they had sued the estate, including the real estate. They did settle that one. Well, there's all kinds of strange things, but getting the liens out of the way, getting the city inspection and those codes done is very important, because you don't want to come back and bite you.
But when a buyer hears about an estate sale, don't they automatically figure that they can discount the price even further?
I think you're thinking of a estate sale where you go and you buy the personal property, not so much in real estate. You price it to sell just like any other property.
Yeah, I would think that, when you have, let's say, the kids who are older now and who are not emotionally attached to the house, the buyer looks at it and says, these guys just want to sell the house at any price. That's not the case?
Well, it depends. I've seen it go both ways. But as a realtor, it's your job as a fiduciary to get the best and highest.
Absolutely.
So you try and do it that way. There was another case where an older brother was the executor. And he, unbeknownst to the other two siblings, had borrowed lots of money from Dad's stock account. And pretty soon he's driving a new car, he's got new furniture, having a good old time. Mom and Dad died, and he told the other siblings, well, you got this amount of money, and it didn't quite ring true. So they
gave part of the car.
better than that, they fired him through
Yeah.
another attorney, got executor, and they made him sell his home house.
Oh my gosh.
And while we're talking about estates and probates and divorces, just keep in mind too, a private money lender is a good resource to go to, and oftentimes when there needs to be capital in those. In fact, we're closing a loan this week in a divorce situation where the husband wants to keep the home, and we're putting a hard money loan on their house in order to pay the wife off. And in probate situations, sometimes one sibling wants to keep a property, and so you get a private money loan in order to pay off the other siblings. And again, these aren't long-term solutions, but in the short-term solution, it's a great way to kind of appease the parties.
All right, guys, this hour went pretty darn fast. I want to thank Stephen Shoen and Mike Samuels for being in the studio today. Thoughts for the day. If the FBI breaks your door down, do they have to pay for it? Unfortunately, I had that situation, not with me, but with one of my tenants. And the answer, I think, is no, they didn't. And as here, always give 100% at work. 20% on Monday, 20% on Tuesday, and so forth. I want to thank my engineer, Hunter Hornstein, for orchestrating this show. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.